niche. So give it just a minute for everyone to start sort of trickling in. The beauty of webinar technology is it still acts as if we are in a physical room where people are funneling in from the back and looking for a seat. It does not just bring everybody in at once. So I will ramble and act awkward for 30 seconds while it lets everyone in. So
we need a theme song. You need to sing a theme song, Alan.
That would be, well, you would not want me to sing it, but we could probably find a way to play it. Fantastic. Well, we'll go ahead and get kicked off. Thanks everyone for joining us today again we're going to be talking about finding your niche. And ultimately how to determine and serve a niche market, why it matters. And I'm very excited to have two esteemed panelists with us who are both XYPN members, very long-term XYPN members who have sort of developed, have seen the value in having a niche and have developed their firm to focus on that niche. So just as a shout out for next month, just put it on your radar on August 3rd, our next monthly webinar is going to be everything you need to know about making your first hire as an advisor. So XYPN members Beverly Johnson and Jake Northrup will be joining us to share their experience in hiring, which Katie, you've hired. Brian, have you hired?
I have not, and I do not want to hire. I do not want anybody under me.
I have not, and I will not, which is awesome. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, hiring, particularly as you go to hire your first advisor to your firm, that is a really big deal. And I think many of us have made many mistakes when it comes to that process. So invite you to join us and some members next month for that conversation. Just in terms of lay of the land, because I know we use this platform called InEvent. I know it's a little bit new for most folks if you haven't been coming, or if this is your first monthly webinar, or maybe this is just the only time you'll see it. But on the right-hand side is where you can toggle between a few different things. The chat, if you want to be able to just talk to each other. I will not be monitoring the chat. My ADD gets like, woo. And so I end up like stumbling over my words and can't keep up. But we do have a team that's going to be sharing some various resources, can share links to XYPN resources and that sort of thing. The second one, which is where I'll live, are in the questions. And so we did ask for questions when you were registering. We got a ton of awesome questions, but we all have a bias for answering questions for people who are here today. So if you have questions that come up, submit them here, and I will do my best to pull those into the conversation. All right, with that intro, let's kick off, and I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves and just briefly just sort of what their niche is and how they sort of came to serving that niche. So Katie Brewer, do you mind kicking us off?
Yeah, sure. So my firm is Your Richest Life. It's been in business, I think, for 8 years now. I've been in
about as long as XYPN's been around, huh?
Yeah, it's actually right there. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, and just XYPN popped up out of nowhere. So I've been in the industry since 2004, so approaching a 20-year anniversary on that. Exciting. And yeah, so I work primarily with physicians. And I say mid-career physicians, but physicians have kind of there are a lot of education requirements and then training requirements. And so for the most part, I work with folks who are practicing physicians anywhere from 0 years out, like they're just starting their first, big job, up to probably 10 or 15 years into practice. So most of my clients fall between like 30 and 55.
I love that mid-career for physicians, still starts on day one because they're in their 30s before they ever actually make money.
They really kind of are.
So totally different planning than what we learned in the CFP program because it's condensed high income years. So fantastic. Well, thanks again, Katie, for being on, and Brian Thompson.
Hey, everyone. I'm Brian. I started Brian Thompson Financial. My firm serves LGBTQ entrepreneurs who run mission-driven businesses. My firm has been in place since 2016, so coming on year 6, or going through year 6. I was a tax attorney beforehand and decided I wanted to have a career change. I wanted to be more proactive rather than reactive, and found XYPN, and they told me about starting my own firm, and I was like, oh, I can do that. And it's been a fun adventure ever since.
Fantastic.
I'm happy to be here.
So you said LGBTQ+ clients who are entrepreneurs in mission-driven businesses. Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of came to that part of the niche in terms of moving beyond identity group and moving more into, and also sort of having that profession, and
Yes.
not just profession, but also social side. I mean, that's a lot of things happening all at once.
Yes. So my first niche, or what I thought was going to be my niche, was LGBTQ couples, and I realized that was just way too broad. Like I was
Mm.
doing so many things for so many people, and because of my tax attorney background, I represented small businesses before the IRS, and so I had a lot of business owners come to me, and I had a bit of a reframe. I did the Kinder Life Planning training in 2020, and that helped me really refocus on what I wanted to do and where I got enjoyment and energy from, and helped me really narrow down the niche. So I knew I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to serve the LGBTQ community. I really enjoy business owners, and so I could narrow down to that. And part of my mission is to make sure that I'm having an impact with my business. And I know that there are lots of people in my community who are also wanting to do that because the world is a scary place for us still. And so narrowed it down even more, as narrow as I could, and I'm sure I could narrow it down even more. It's the more that I do this, the more that I find it's easier, and being able to focus on certain things, certain business clients. We all do the same thing. We have the same conversations. It's much easier and more scalable, especially since I want to stay by myself. I don't want to hire. I just want to be me.
So, Brian, do you sort of vet out the mission driven side of the firm and ensure that their mission aligns with your values and what the impact you're hoping to have, or are you neutral in that aspect?
I'm not neutral in that aspect, but most people who find me have a mission that's aligned with mine, because I make my
Okay.
values very clear on my website about who I serve and what I want to do and the impact that I want to have, and that this is a place for LGBTQ people and people of color. And so I guess people who are not aligned in that sense don't contact me in the first place.
Okay.
But I had the coolest clients that do the most fun things, and uh, it makes my job a little bit easier because I get so excited about the impact that they're having, and me being able to help them have the impact is just a bonus.
I think it's a good reminder that you have a right as an advisor to be excited about the clients you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't have to feel like you need to compromise your values or work with anyone who's willing to pay you, because it's a lot more fun to show up and have the conversation with someone who is in alignment with your values than someone who is totally opposite of
Right.
your values. That would make that a very difficult conversation.
Exactly right.
So, Katie, can you talk about how you sort of discovered the this niche of physicians? Because you didn't start your firm out specifically working with physicians. So, at least as my memory recalls, which is not all the ways the best. So,
Yep.
I guess, how did you sort of end up in that niche market?
Funny story. You're talking about ADD. I always take the path that's kind of like you could go straight through, or you could wander around a lake and up the mountains and down. Um, so honestly, like I ended up working with physicians because back in school, I thought I was going to go into med school. It turns out I have way more left brain than right brain. Um, and so actually, like I am a perfect fit for my physician clients because I know where they've been. I know how much they study and how, hard their job is. And then I also know that a lot of times they are really good at kind of the creative side, the memorization side, you know, um, I work with a lot of women physicians. They tend to get a little like stuck, and I have to do it perfect because if they do something in their job that's not perfect, then it's trouble. Um, so I didn't actually start out in this niche. I tried out a couple. I kind of put it as like trying on pairs of pants.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do it like for a month. So my dad was an attorney, and so I said, I think I'm going to work with attorneys. I still have a few attorney clients, but I found that was not, it just didn't click. It was not my calling. Um, so, like there are some people that are, asking questions about, should you even focus? Should you pick one? Just pick one, try it on. It's like a pair of pants. You can't wear 5 pairs of pants at the same time, but you can try them on, see how they fit. Um, and then I just feel like the clients that I work with now fit. I'm Brian, I might steal some of your stuff because
Do it.
I actually work with, I would say, mission driven physicians because a lot of them are in specialties like pediatrics. They work with like Medicaid patients. So in general, like my physician clients might make, 200,000 to 500,000, which is still a great income. But my particular firm does not work with like the neurosurgeons that are making $1.2 million because for the most part, I'm working with a lot of women physicians, and they are in this to make an impact on their community, and we're kind of attracted to each other in that way.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And thanks for sharing that about trying different niches. I remember my first niche idea was I was going to work with divorcing or divorced couples. I got my CDFA, had 2 clients, and was like, and we're done. I was not built for these conversations, and so I would recommend maybe try find ways to test run. If you're really not sure what you want to do, find ways to test run a niche before you just like go all in. My ADD, I'm like, let's just dive in, we'll figure it out. And I spent a lot of time learning a lot of information that I have not used since. So, but got some letters. So I know one of the primary questions, just sort of on the front end, is what some folks just have a natural niche market that they're like, of course, like this is where I want to be. I used to be a teacher, an engineer. I used to, my spouse is or partner is, in this community or whatnot, and you sort of fall into it. Others have to go looking. And so what advice do you have for advisors who are saying like, blank slate, not sure where I want to be, but I hear you on the value of a niche. I want to do this, but I don't know what to do. Like, where do you, I guess, what advice would you give those advisors?
I'll let Brian start.
Oh, okay. So I always say that you should do everything with intention. And so I take my business clients through the process of what are your vision, what are your values, and what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And that's just an overall arching thing. What do you want this business to be? This business is for you to live the life that you want. So we need to figure out what that looks like and what you want. And I feel like if we start from that place, who you want to serve, your ideal client, we talk about ideal client, sort of falls into place. But it's starting from that place of intention of what do you want to do? What do you want to build? What kind of life do you want to live? And starting from there and then using that as a lens to decide everything else.
Yeah, Steve Wershing is a business coach who focuses on niching, if you will. And one of the things he says, and I love this because it's like, what does niche even mean? And he defines niche as the problem you enjoy helping people solve. Because we think of niche as like profession based or identity or something something along those lines. But there's so many ways to sort of carve up and be really intentional about who you want to serve. And so I like to encourage advisors, just stop and think, what's the problem I love helping people solve? What's the problem I want to be the best at helping them navigate? And so if you think about it through that lens, I'm not asking you to change your marketing messaging. Like, Katie, what would you say? You work with mid-career physicians that are mission-driven, typically, tend to be women. Like, what's the problem, the challenge that they have that you feel like you're really helping them solve that other advisors aren't as focused on or don't have the expertise?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's just even prioritizing and figuring out in what order to hit stuff. So it's like, okay, there are student loans and they're stressful, and a lot of the women physicians that I work with, their spouse might not work, so then they have a one income family. It's a lot of times it's like helping them just kind of like go higher level to see what it is that they are actually trying to accomplish, and then helping them kind of like, okay, well, here are there's 10 things on your list, but we're only going to pick 3, and those are the things that we're going to focus on for the next like 6 to 12 months. So a lot of times it's like bringing ideas to action and then like helping them to follow all the way through, instead of starting things and then being like, this is taking too much time. I have a busy career and a busy family, and this is stressful, and I'm just going to shut down. So sometimes it's just helping, keep organized and finish things that need to get done, but are not on somebody's list of things that they enjoy doing.
Okay. No, that's super helpful. One thing that I'm probably remiss is that I just assume everyone is bought in. Everyone on the webinar is bought into this idea of you can and should have a niche market. But not everyone is. And some people are really scared, especially we all remember starting our firms and just thinking like, just someone please pay me to do some work. And we've obviously been pounding the table for the reasons to have a niche market. We have the data to now show that niche markets are firms with a niche market grow faster. They tend to provide more value to their clients, spend less time with each client because they, all the things. But it's the quantitative side, and many advisors are as left brain as right brain. And so, Brian, I guess what would you tell an advisor who is nervous? They're like, I hear you, but like I got to pay the bills. So what advice would you give them as they're sort of making a decision on whether or not they're even going to try to develop a niche market?
Yeah, I mean, I would first empathize because I know that fear. I know the fear around taking the risk and feeling like you're limiting yourself or limiting the ability to make money. I get it, it's real. And it turns out, and as you were talking about, the research has shown that you actually make more money faster if you do niche, right? There are plenty of people now, back when 6 years ago when I started, it still felt like a new concept. And I'm sure Katie, back when you started, it was still fairly new too. Like now we have people that have done it. And I have lots of friends in the industry now who have also niched and made a very successful business just from really keeping focus on who they want to serve and the problem that they want to solve. So I get the fear, and a lot of this is just a lot of being an entrepreneur is taking the steps even with the fear in front of you, making sure that you can try to build the best life that you can.
Katie,
I feel like
did you have a fear getting into a niche?
Yeah, I mean, obviously why I tried on a couple of pairs of pants. But I always feel like if you say, hey, I'm going to focus on this, and here's the amount of time I'm going to give it, and then I'm going to make the decision on whether it's working or not working. Because as advisors, like we plan out lives for people. And so sometimes we think we have to have everything lined up exactly the way we're going to do it. But part of being a financial planner that is also a business owner is you sometimes have to unlearn what we're really good at for everybody else. Because as a business owner, you try things and then kind of like in tech, you beta test things and then you decide if they're going to work or not. And if they're not working, then you go back to square one and kind of make a decision on whether you want to change it or not. And I always also tell people, like, having a niche means that you have the right to work with that group, but you also have the right to take on other people if you want to take them on. Like I have all kinds of, I've been doing this since 2004. I have a lot of contacts through FPA and through NAPFA. And so sometimes they'll be like, Katie's cool. You should talk to her. And somebody will show up on my proverbial doorstep because I'm virtual. And they'll be like, hey, so-and-so told me you were really cool. And I'll kind of go through, some questions, and they might not be a good fit at all. But that's okay, because I'm going to leave them in a better place than they were before. I'm going to probably do a concierge matching service for no charge with another advisor that I know like specializes in where they are or what they need or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because we did get a question around, how do I find other advisors to refer by, the clients who aren't a good fit for me? And that's what we're starting to see. We see that at XYPN, where we have an internal board where folks can make those introductions, or you can go to the Find an Advisor portal and make those introductions. But the more firms that are developing niches, the more cross referrals that we see. Which is really fascinating and something that's exciting, because I think there's real value in, as I would say the wrong client for your firm, but is the perfect client for another firm. We want to connect them with that firm. And I think that's where the generalist falls short, is because if a LGBTQA plus client who is an entrepreneur with a mission driven company comes to me and says, hey, I'm looking for a firm, I'm not like, oh, well, I got this great generalist advisor because I don't know where else to send you. I'm like, no, go to Brian. And so the niche focused firms start to sort of pick off the clients, and the generalists are sort of left with like, well, we don't know who to send you. And so that's so much of the value is in that cross referral. Katie, let's see, this is the first time I've done this, so we'll see if it works. Look at that question right there on the screen. Sorry, I'm covering Brian's face. If I move, I'll cover my own face. And because you mentioned you've worn several pairs of pants now, as from a niche perspective, have you ever gotten pushback from current clients on making that shift?
No, because honestly, there's separate messaging, usually for the marketing part, which is attracting new clients to the funnel, and for the existing client service. So, I mean, in general, if I had a client who was like referring a lot of people and they were not near the niche that I'm trying to attract, then I might say, hey, thank you so much, but you can send them to me and then I'm going to connect them with somebody that I feel like can better service them. But I don't have a newsletter that's only for physicians. And if I did, honestly, I could just pick the ones that I know are physicians and send it to them and not send my physician focused newsletter to, the couple of business owners and some people in tech that I have.
That's a great point. Brian, did you go through this as you sort of narrowed your niche? Because I assume you probably had clients that were great, were part of your niche early on that weren't business owners.
I did, and I actually didn't take the approach of trying to like segregate them. I changed my branding, I changed my newsletter, and just kept sending it out to everyone. And I've gotten no pushback, and people seem to be proud of what I'm doing and still know. And I still have clients that are LGBTQ couples that are not entrepreneurs.
I was going to ask, did you move, let those clients go, or you continue to serve them as you continue to focus your firm?
Yeah, I continue to serve them. They were good clients that I felt like were good fits for me for various reasons and are still on. I did go through a process of where I increased everyone's fees, and so lost some clients there, but that was mostly because I charged my entrepreneurs more. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was sort of on the same level as everyone else, but I didn't have any pushback. And I haven't really had to do any navigating around, oh, do I need to talk to these certain people or certain people? I just still talk to business owners and see what happens.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the challenge of if I hear some folks say, I'm going to be generalist for a few years and then I'm going to focus later on. And the truth is, like, we have an affinity for those first 10 clients because they took the leap with us. I mean, like, you talk about risk taking, like signing on with an advisor when they first launch a business, and no one wants to tell client number 3, like, oh, I'm sorry, I went a different direction than you. And so we tend to keep those clients. I mean, I know I certainly did. And I very much, I'm the first one to tell you, I did not eat my own cooking. I started out, I worked with individuals and families. They're real specific. And so I can tell you about all the pitfalls there. But,
not conjoined twins, I guess. I mean, that only narrows out very, very, very few people.
There you go. I guess there are a few folks who I could not serve. But, those clients tend to stay with us and they tend to refer new clients to us because we've done a great job for them and that sort of thing. And so it is one of the reasons why we, again, really say, like, hey, just try getting out of the gate, like, try your best to get clear on who you want to serve, because those decisions, while you can always change, there will always be a legacy of the decisions that you've made in your business, good and bad. And so you just have to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about niche as marketing, but it's also client servicing.
Absolutely.
So if you change your niche just for marketing, not a big deal. But if you take on clients, what I've seen over and over again, because Brian and I started way long ago, was people would start off with, I'll take whomever. And then it makes it more difficult for client servicing if now you're only working with Brian's target market, or you're only working with physicians. And then you have like the random couple of people that aren't getting value from what you're sending out in your newsletter. And, you always have to do something different. Like, for example, got a couple clients that never want to check their online portal or upload stuff, and they want to send me stuff in the mail. And like, I sometimes make exceptions, but I'm not ever going to do that again because I've now learned my lesson that the efficiency and your ability to really provide value goes down. I feel like more that you're trying to stretch yourself out between a 70-year-old widow and a 25-year-old upstart that's starting a business, and all these different things where they don't really have anything in common.
Yeah, I felt like that was my biggest lift from going from LGBTQ couples. We were doing many different things because they had different careers and different types of practices and were different ages. And then I started just focusing on my business owners, and things got so much easier. Such a relief to be like, oh yes, I'm having a niche conversation 3 times this week about picking your ideal client, your target market. And it's much easier to scale that way. And I found it so much easier, which I didn't think would happen, but it did.
I love that you're calling out the client service side, because so often the niche gets accused of, like, it's just for marketing. Like, I can serve physicians, I can serve business owners, I can say, whatever. Like, I'm just as good as you are. I'm just not putting it in my marketing. And so there is a marketing aspect of attracting your niche market. However, I mean, what really differentiates what you two are doing from advisors who have either a different niche market or more of a generalist firm is that your service model is built for your target market, and mine is not, right? And so that so often, I mean, that should sort of carry into your marketing and how you ultimately sell the service. But so often advisors will say, well, yeah, I'm going to do monthly retainers. I'm trying to decide who I should work with. It's like, no. Monthly retainer, that is a fee structure. Don't start there. Start with ideal client, then move to service model, then move to pricing structure. And because that pricing structure needs to work for whoever your ideal client is. Maybe it's AUM, maybe it's flat fee, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's monthly. There's a lot of options. But this is where we want to start.
Yep.
So how do you go about, well, let me publish this question because I think this ties in with what we're talking about here. And that is, how do you ultimately advertise your niche? How do you tell people, neither of you have your niche in your firm name. And so, which some advisors choose to do. And so how do you go about, letting people know what your niche is and who should be referring to you? So Brian, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I start out with my website. Obviously, that's the first place most people go. And I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of content marketing. And I talk to a lot of people. And being able to really succinctly say I serve mission-driven LGBTQ entrepreneurs who run mission-driven businesses, it starts to become habit, right? And people know what you do, and people then can relate that to other people that they feel like are a good fit. But it's really just talking about it, making succinct about what I do, who I do it for, and sometimes how I do it, if they get that far in the conversation. But
how big is content marketing for you? Like, I guess, or whether it's content marketing, or I guess, what are the primary channels that you have found work really well to attract your ideal client to your firm?
So I did a lot of writing. I do a lot of writing, and I ended up becoming a contributor for Forbes. And back, especially when the pandemic happened, there was a lot of business stuff happening. That's what really took off because I was writing about business stuff that business owners wanted to read. And so I did a lot there. I have a newsletter that I send. I have all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I've written for NAPA. I've written for different places. Like I tried to do as much as I could to get my name and my brand out there. So much so that I had to take a rest last year. I was exhausted of doing so many things. So I took a rest, and now I'm finally back into doing presentations and doing webinars and all those types of things. But trying to just really get my name out there as much as I can.
It's the beauty of the law training is you're a prolific writer and very good at it as well. And that is a huge help. I am not. And so I would encourage folks, find the thing you are good at. I'm not here to tell you blogging is the way you must go. Not everyone should be a Forbes contributor, but that works really well for you because it's in your skill set. It's where your ideal clients are looking for content, and therefore they're going to find you.
I'm going to be honest. At this point, I have so many people coming in the door, and Brian probably does too, that I want to go back and do a lot of the marketing things that I did, but it's kind of like, what is the old saying? The ball with the moss. The Rolling Stone gathers no moss.
I'm not sure of that one.
When I try to throw a saying in here and screw it up royally. But it's like, I see advisors sometimes are like, oh, I've got to be tweeting every hour, and I have to do this and I have to do that. If you have nothing else to do, great, do that. But once you get kind of a little bit more well known, it just happens organically sometimes. And then your website and your social media just has to be good enough not to turn people off from talking to you. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It should still attract people to you and not repel them. But, I don't think I've ever had anybody say, I found your firm because you tweeted. Maybe they did, but, usually it's all of the different parts of what I've done,
Right.
so that when somebody puts in financial planner for physicians, I probably show up somewhere, whether it's one of the sites that I advertise on or my site directly or whatnot. So I still do it to keep it all active, and essentially I call it to please the Google gods. But, other than that, I would say in general, what we stick on Facebook and Twitter for me has not brought droves of clients in.
Yeah, I don't know that it's brought droves of clients, but I feel like it helps those who do find me get to know me and get a sense of who I am. I also have a podcast, and so people can hear my voice. And I think that just really helps solidify the prospect process when they can find you in different areas and know who you are. They get a sense of who you are.
So, and I guess I would add in, like, if you're not somebody who's really great at marketing, like a branding consultant is what you need. And
Mhm.
XY actually has like some great resources and coaches that like that's their job is helping in that area. So like you don't have to go learn everything about branding when you're starting a firm. Like if you know a little bit, that would be really helpful. But there are other people that you can lean on and rely on so that you don't have to also become a branding and SEO and social media expert.
Mm-hmm.
I love that quote, Katie, about the Google gods, because 85% of marketing is trying to please the Google algorithm. Like
Yeah, it kind
the
of is.
algorithm, no one actually knows what's in. We just guess, and it changes rapidly. But no, I appreciate you both sharing, because I think those are all excellent ways of thinking about how to get the word out there. And but also, Brian, I would think that you, just based on your niche market, centers of influence are probably a pretty good source of new clients, because I would think it's a tight knit community, maybe not. And there are other not financial advisors, other professionals that are serving that community. Do you have some places where you get referrals from individual like that, or am I thinking of that wrong?
No, I think you're right. And I feel like I mostly get those types of referrals from my clients who
Mm.
are running mission-driven businesses and have other people that run mission-driven businesses and uh, have gotten a lot of value from our work together. So they refer me to other people. And I have actually gotten a lot of clients, some big dollar clients from other advisors who say, "Oh, I know the perfect person for you,"
Mhm.
and just send them my way. So just really being clear on what I do and who I serve, and then people sort of come to me too.
No, that's
I,
great.
I think got 3 physician clients from like other advisors that have known me for a really long time and either had somebody that reached out to them or was a friend to them or is actually like their brother. So they don't want to work with them directly. So they're like, well, I know this great person and it's Katie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was just from me being clear with who I work with and from
Mm.
developing those relationships over a long time, but then also communicating. When I started my firm, I emailed everybody and set up 15-minute coffee chats and everything because I was like, I'm not going to assume that they're just like following all my social media and know what I'm up to. I'm actually
Mhm.
going to proactively reach out and tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that in the end, providing great service is going to lead to clients referring more clients to you, right? Like that's just that. And as you grow, client referrals will become a bigger and bigger portion of new clients. The challenge is it takes a couple of years for clients to refer their first new client to you, and if you have no clients, you get no client referrals. So you got to start somewhere, and that's where I think it's important to think about time blocking, whether you do this on a quarterly basis or more or less frequently. But early days, you're going to spend the majority of your time, I hope, out trying to find new clients, right? You have no clients, you got to get clients, and servicing, many times over servicing those early clients because we just want to do a great job. And over time, that time allocation starts to shift where less and less of your time is spent on the marketing side. And I think that scares a lot of folks. Like, oh my gosh, do I have to write 17 articles a week forever? And it's like,
Mhm.
first off, maybe not 17. And second, like it won't be forever. And you'll be able to, one, find out what works because you don't really know, and what you enjoy and all of that. And it'll start to narrow over time.
Mhm. I also think like an important part about what you're saying is really when you're talking to these people, just asking what they want, what they need. Um, the most beneficial aspects to my marketing and my business building has been just asking people, what do you want? How can I best serve you? Or talking to people that also serve those clients. What kind of things? How can I help fill in the gaps to where you may not be able to serve them, whether it's a CPA or an estate planning attorney or whatever. Just asking and learning and getting information from that and using that as part of your marketing process, part of the process of building your business and building the structure around what you do.
Love
And
that.
I did want to add in that, if somebody's scared that they don't want to like do all this marketing forever, I have somebody that helps me write. I'm not a great natural writer.
Mm.
So, I don't let her completely loose, but we've been working for like 5 years together at this point. So, like, she understands my brand. She pretty much, like, could replicate me and make a lot better at marketing. And that's what she does. Um, just because I know when I very first started writing, it was like a dissertation.
Mm.
I'm the daughter of an attorney, so it would be like 7, lines or 7 sentences without any kind of break in it. Um, So if that's a concern, like you might not be able to afford to outsource writing immediately when you're starting your own firm, but eventually, if that's something where you want to continue to do it, then you can bring team members on and continue to do what you're doing, but with you not having to have your fingers in everything all the time.
Right.
Absolutely. So this question, Katie, I'm going to push over to you, and that is because you've tried on several pairs of pants, and currently you are working with a variety of clients. What do you think about the idea of just having 2 or 3 defined niches that you're working with? Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's recommended? What's your advice as someone who has worked in a variety of niche markets at this point?
Yeah, so it's funny because like my number 1 and number 2, so it's physicians and business owners, and there's actually a lot of crossover because I have a lot of physicians that are business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that I'm doing for my physician business owners, I can, bring a lot of the same value for business owners that are in other businesses. So I don't know. It's kind of funny because I feel like it's kind of like diversifying, which is probably not what all the marketing people would say. But like, just in case healthcare all goes down the toilet isn't going to happen. I have a backup niche that I am already like working with, very familiar with, and it's a little bit concentric, like my little picture over here, where a lot of the business owners that I do work with are physicians, but I'm familiar with like the W-2 physician and the self-employed physician, and I can kind of help all of them.
Awesome. We have a question that was came through in as part of the pre-submitted questions, and it was how to know if you're being too specific. And this person gave an example of I mesh best with people in agriculture. If I niche to cattle feeders or farmers who only grow a certain a certain type of corn from a certain company, is that too narrow? I guess how did you think about your niche and how specific to get versus how and was there ever a concern, Brian, as when you continue to get more and more focused, like was there ever a concern that like are there enough clients out there for me in this niche market to really build a successful business?
Yeah, I feel like the more focused I got, the better the experience got, and so I've yet to see someone who's too focused. I continually feel like I need to get more and more focused because for me, I only need 30 clients. And so that there are 30 mission-driven business LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs out there that need my help and that will pay me $10,000 a year or $15,000 or $25,000 a year. I wasn't really worried about that because at that time too, I was already at a point of having enough clients that I was like, I need to slow down and I don't want to grow. I don't want to have a team under me. So I knew that I could only serve so many. And I continued to try to really focus and get more detailed on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and then who I'm going to do it for. And that just makes my job easier in the long run.
And I do think it's really important because you are so clear and intentional about the business that you're building. I think many advisors, and myself included, when we first started the business, I wasn't really sure, am I building a big business, a medium size? Is it just going to be me? I didn't have that intentionality. And if you said, hey, I want to have 10,000 clients and be running a multi-billion-dollar firm, you may say, maybe this niche is a little too specific. We don't generally see super large firms that narrow, or we see big firms with lots and lots of niches because they got lots and lots of advisors, and that's okay too. That's its own conversation. But being really intentional about the business that you're building allows you to answer that question of, is this a big enough marketplace for me? Again, if you want 1,000 clients, saying you only work with former presidents, maybe not. If you say I need 3 great clients and I just want to be the best at that, you can even have former presidents like that. There's enough out there. That's something that I think gets overlooked. And I don't think we give ourselves permission enough to be really intentional about building the business that supports our own great life in the same way that we're helping our clients live their great lives.
I feel like it all starts with that. Like I said before, the vision, the values, the mission that you're trying to do and trying to build, it starts with you figuring out and being intentional about what you want to build and the life that you want to build from this business. And you can use that as a lens to really make decisions and everything else that follows.
Absolutely.
And it's always something where you can try it out. And if it's not working after a year, then you pivot to other farmers or whoever else that you want to add in.
Yeah.
I will say for me, I actually did not get into working with doctors for a couple of years because in my head, I was like, there are so many like people that are trying to work with doctors. Like, who am I to bring something different? It was funny when I got into it, I was like, there are so many doctors and I can only handle up to like 70 clients. So I
Mhm.
only need 70 people in those seats. I don't need, 5,000 physician clients to make this firm work. So I think, for me, like I was wanting to get into a niche where I felt like it was already saturated, but it's really not, because if you're attracting the people that are looking for what you're offering, then you're different enough from everybody else to be able
Mhm.
to find the right number of clients that, makes you have a good firm.
Right. And I imagine that your skills, the personality that you bring just from being you is going to be different and differentiate yourself from other people that also serve physicians, right? You're able to learn. I love the idea of trying on pants, trying it on, seeing other things, and then taking things and learning from that, right? Even if you
Yeah,
have to start over, you're not starting completely from scratch. You've learned something from that experience and can then apply that to your next niche.
right. Yep.
Yeah, you preempted the next question, Katie, which I appreciate, which was just like how to tell if a niche is oversaturated with advisors. And I would say physicians and or business owners, like you're starting to get like probably the most common niches that we see. Physicians was a cool niche before niching was cool.
Yeah, I know.
But I think it's actually interesting too. Those conversations have really changed. When I came into the industry, I remember people like, do not work with physicians. They're know-it-alls. They're gonna go invest in all this random stuff, and I think that conversation has changed. But
I'm not
even
going to lie,
then,
some of that is true. But
it
hey,
still happens.
behavioral consulting is what we bring to the table.
But I love the point that you're both making about, and that Brian made specifically about, who you are as a person. Because, when you say we work with physicians and then you go and you look at the service model, I can work with physicians and you can work with physicians. And if you are the, more, data driven, really detail oriented, and I'm more the life planner, not that
Mhm.
you can't be both, but like I'm more the life planner and I'm going to make you cry in at least half of our meetings. Like, we're going
In a
to
good way.
attract and serve different clients, right? And we're going to be the right advisor for different physicians. And so
Mhm.
I don't think I've seen an overly saturated market. I mean, short of just sometimes like people just saying I'm going to work with retirees, it's just
Mhm.
it feels saturated just because everyone says it. But even that, like, there's plenty of retiring baby boomer retirees with several $1 million in assets that are unserved because we have a massive advisor shortage. I mean, we don't have enough advisors to serve the clients that we're already trying to serve, much less now that we've opened up the world of people who don't have millions of dollars,
Mhm.
which is a ton of fun. But I wouldn't be concerned about oversaturation. That is not something I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, even if you go on the XY portal and they have a search by who, there's a lot of people that are working with medical professionals that are
Yeah.
listed on there. But at the same time, like the clients that find me are finding me other ways. They're finding me from referrals from other people. They're finding me because I do, education in that space. They're finding me because they're like local here in the Dallas area. So unless, somebody is making it too broad, I would say just pick one and go with it. I do
Mhm.
love the folks that get really like narrow. Like I cannot remember the name of the guy, but there's somebody that I think is an XY that works with tattoo artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's excellent. I mean, he has a passion for tattoos and he's working with tattoo artists and he loves like, probably being able to talk art and also be able to like help them with their businesses. Um, and I mean, I think that's amazing. But you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to pick one or not pick one. I guess my own story is I am married to an aerospace engineer. For like a hot second, I was like, well, I've got like access to all kinds of thousands of aerospace engineers. God bless the people that work with engineers, and I'm married to one, so yay. But that was something that like very quickly, the way that I wanted to work and the way I wanted to run my firm did not agree with working with that specific set, even though
Mhm.
that's my natural niche and it would have been very easy. I could have hit the easy button on like I've known some of these people for 20 years. Like I could just be like, hey, I'm doing this, so come on over and be my client. But I just thought about like kind of the life that I wanted and how I wanted to work with people. And I really appreciate working with folks that I feel like I'm bringing a lot of value to. And just engineers in general tend to like, if you're that person that likes to debate everything, you should work with engineers. They like to debate everything. I don't really like to debate stuff. I like to, like, hey, here you've got option A, B, and C, and which way do you want to take? And then let's keep moving you until you get stuff done.
Yeah. And I know several advisors that actually work with engineers that specifically want to work, which is right.
And so when all my friends ask me, I can send them to somebody else with XY that God bless them. They like working with aerospace engineers.
Yeah, put me in that. Put me in that group. If you suffer from ADHD, engineering clients may not be the way to go. So Colton Etherson is who you just mentioned, who is the tattoo advisor. We have some really cool niches that range in terms of how big the niche is. We have advisors that work with physicians and business owners. We have one advisor who works with sex workers and strippers. We have one that works with
Lindsay, shout out.
With Lindsay. We have one who specifically works with online sex workers. We have some that work with folks in the cannabis industry. We have we just had someone on the podcast, or just recorded with a podcast. He works specifically with, I always get this wrong, but volunteer firefighter companies in Pennsylvania. I didn't even know that was a thing. That is his focus. That's his niche. And there are plenty of volunteer firefighter companies. Every county's got a couple that he's able to serve. And so, some of the more common ones I call out, we've got one who works with Chick-fil-A franchise operators. They don't work with Burger King franchisees. They work with Chick-fil-A. And there's a few thousand Chick-fil-A franchises that are out there. So they're doing just fine.
I'm curious, out of all the ones that you've seen, have you seen anybody get too narrow? I mean, the ones that you're talking about are like super specific.
Yeah, I mean, they really can get. I mean, I have seen advisors who have chosen to broaden, and so who may say, "Hey, I'm going to take a narrow focus," and maybe they found that those clients specifically weren't able to match up service model, fee structure, and willingness to pay. So that does happen, and I can think of a couple of instances where some folks have focused on, I'm just going to work with teachers, but they needed to charge enough that it didn't quite work out, so they ended up expanding or and that sort of thing. But for the most part, I mean, again, I guess the short answer is I'm not seeing advisors who get too specific. Now, would I encourage 100 of us to jump in and start working with Chick-fil-A franchise operators? No. Daniel Hanush with Panda Wealth. I mean, he has an in. He partnered with the Michael Kitsis of Chick-fil-A, and so he had an in there that ultimately they built out this amazing practice. I might look at what they did and maybe go to Burger King franchise operators and see what you can do there. And so that's where we may say okay, that market may be saturated in the sense that it's just going to be hard to replicate. You can't have too many advisors in that one space, but I've never had anyone tell me they wanted to go compete head to head with Daniel. I think I would steer clear. But no, I think we just, and again, it's some of it just depends on what size firm you're looking at growing. So some of our fastest growing firms at XYPN, one that comes to mind is Brooklyn FI. So Shane and AJ out of Brooklyn, their background was in tax. Shane had a tax practice. Now they specifically focus on clients with stock options at companies that are IPOing. That is a huge marketplace, right? And so, but they want to build a huge firm. And, I might have told them hey, if you only want 70 clients, that's a little broad, but they want to build a big firm. I think at our conference last year, they said they were bringing on 14 clients a week. Fantastic. That's a great niche to be. It's specific enough to be able to, grow a business and be able to get those referrals. And they've got some awesome channels. So it is specific enough, but it's also broad enough. It's a big enough market. I should say broad. It's a big enough marketplace that they can grow the type of firm that they want to grow. And so, And the other thing I would encourage folks who are out there is, and I'd like to do more here at XYPN just to develop some worksheets and processes to help folks develop a niche. Worst case scenario is go find something you're interested in and then go find the advisors who are doing that work and just start out at a lower price point. I mean, again, almost every advisor I just mentioned that has that specific niche has told me, I have too many clients or too many prospects coming to me. I can't serve all of them. I need somewhere to send these clients. Is there a younger in their career Brian who is out there who I can send the clients who aren't a good fit for me, or just quite frankly, I just can't serve them, like that I can go out there and help. And so I think, there are so many opportunities here that it really is. I think it's just about committing to it and being willing to just buy in and say, okay, I'm going to do it. Even if I don't want to, I'm going to do it. Assuming you find a niche that's a good fit. Again, don't get into a niche market just to get into one. You got to have a passion for it, an interest in that problem. If you hate the idea of working, talking about divorce all the time, like don't work with divorcing clients. Like that's just a bad, you will burn out very quickly there.
Right. Yep.
So I'm curious, how do you stay true to your niche as you grow? Because your name gets out there, your brand, and people come to your website. Brian, I went to your website whenever you said like it's on your, like it is very clear who you work with, and I may look at that and be like, I love this guy. Like this guy is amazing. Like I don't fit in that niche, but like I love what you're doing so much. I'm going to call you. How do you stay true to that niche and continue to build that direction instead of ultimately getting split?
Yeah, I just have to stand firm that this is who I serve, and I appreciate you coming to me, and I can find you somebody else that's going to be a better fit for you. But even last week I had a lesbian Black couple that ran a business that was like a beauty business. And I was like, I don't do inventory, and we don't talk about cap tables and all that stuff, so you're not a good fit for me. And I'm sorry, I really want to work with you.
Oh my gosh, that's like 3 of the 4 things. Like,
yeah, right?
That was like right there, but still you said, no, I don't think I'm the right fit.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is knowing that I have a capacity, right? And knowing that I can't do everything for everyone. And so getting clear on what I want to do and who I want to do it for the most. I would love to maybe like research that issue and walk them through it, but I just don't have time or capacity for that. So I need to get real specific and real clear and keep my boundaries. It's all about setting those boundaries.
And do you have a little Brian, we'll call them, that's out there that you can send that client couple to? Like, is anyone else in your sphere when it comes to this niche?
I do not have a little Brian. I would love, if there are little Brians out there, let me know, because I would love to send some clients your way. But I've always run into the problem that I feel like people are looking specifically for a Black queer advisor. There's just not a ton of Black queer advisors that do business stuff. There's just not a ton of us out there.
That is fair. Yeah, and I respect you for being able to say like, hey, it's just not the right fit. Because it used to be we only said that when people didn't have enough money. And I always heard that when I was starting out, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not rich enough to work with us, right? And which is just we got into this business to help people. At least I did. I know you two did. Like, we got in this business because we truly view it as a helping profession. It can be hard to tell someone like, hey, I can provide value to you, but it's still not the right fit for me. But it is okay to do that, even if it's hard, even if you kind of get that knot in your stomach. Sometimes when you do it, like, it's okay to say we're just not the right fit. And hopefully, again, if there's someone who aspires to be little Brian or already is, like, let Brian know, because this is where we now have enough advisors far enough down the track when it comes to developing niche markets that, many times the niche becomes unwieldy in the sense that it just continues to grow and the funnel continues to grow. It doesn't stop. And so we're always looking for how do we get those, make a handoff to an advisor that's going to take care of those clients.
Mm-hmm. I had to do kind of a mindset shift, because I always felt guilty. Like, oh, these people are coming to me and I'm the one that can help them. And so I had to kind of like wrap my mind around, okay, well, I'm not doing them really a big favor. I'll give you an example. I once took on a client that was like from Australia, was working in the US, had accounts in the US and in Australia. And I was like, this will be fun. I'm going to learn something new. Okay, I did learn a lot of new stuff, but B, there are people that are fee only that work with cross-border specialty, and they would have like probably way better service this client, than me trying to fuddle through figuring out what a super annuity is. FYI, that's an Australian thing. And doing like a spreadsheet so that on a day-to-day basis, I could figure out what the exchange rate was his Australian money and his US money. And that was one of the things where I was like, you know what? Like, I did that because I was like, this will be fun. I didn't do that because that was in their best interest, I don't think. Like, I could have sent them to somebody else. So sometimes I spend a little bit more time like trying to find somebody specific to send them to. I know other people will just be like, here's the XY website. I mean, you're actually still creating value. You're not just releasing it back in the wild. You have, narrowed it down to at least people that are fee only and probably work with them and are on a model they can, potentially afford. But I do spend a little bit more time, especially if it was like another advisor that sent them to me, so that I'm not just like, sorry, sorry about your friend that you can't find anybody for, but good luck to you.
Yeah, and it is an option to, if you choose and you say, look, I want to be able to work with clients outside my niche because I do want it to be a helping thing, then like carve out a certain amount of time. I would encourage one-time plans, not ongoing. Be careful with complexity. To your point, Ash Murphy, who specializes in Australian, US cross-border planning, would probably be appalled at the work that we all would do for one of his clients. We probably cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because we don't know everything. So be cognizant of complexity and that you actually have the expertise to do that work. But it is okay. I'd say for the advisor who just can't let that go, it's like, okay, do one-time plans so you can help. You're going to be providing a lot of value, but be wary of giving up those 30 in Brian's case or 75 in Katie's case. Ongoing relationship seats, and that it's not going to take you away from the business that you want to build. But again, it's okay. I give you all permission to let that go and to really focus on who am I going to be the best at serving, or again, said another way, what is the problem, the challenge that I'm going to be the best at helping clients overcome and help them solve. So we will squeeze in one more question here at the very end. Get my questions up just to see. This is Brian. Are you currently remote only, or are you meeting? Okay, so you're both remote only. So this applies to both of you. This is great. And then what demand are you seeing for clients that want a remote only advisor? Sorry, I'll publish. I forget to push buttons. And I'll add to this is: do you feel that remote only is a niche, or is that not enough?
I feel like it's a preference, not a niche.
Yeah.
I think I did kind of play around with like SEO around virtual financial planner, but like then you get every kind of random person that just is located rurally usually and only has like, CPAs in their town or whatnot. But I mean, it's kind of, Brian was talking about when people check out the website and that he kind of vets people really well. If somebody wants to meet in person, I figure out who in NAPFA in my local area has availability, and I say, this is the person that you should meet with. I do technically have like a space that I can rent office space in. So I use it for my mailbox. It's like $50 a month. So
like
I
a Regis or a WeWork type thing.
Yes, exactly. So I have that, but for the most part, when I've had people ask like, will you meet in person? And I'm like, I can. Here's the address. But what I find is that especially physicians are very busy. Their hours are crazy. We're trying to cram stuff in sometimes when they're still at the hospital on a break. And just being able to like jump on their phone and do a quick meeting is super convenient. They're not having to get in the car, and drive an hour, because I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth. Traffic is crazy here.
2 hours everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes, like, even if they ask that, if I explain why I meet virtually with 99.99% of my clients, they're like, oh, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. And you're right. I don't want to drive an hour there and an hour back to meet with you. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I just say I don't even explain why. Just like, no, I don't meet with people in person. And that's it.
Which does sort of focus on your niche, right? I mean, you're narrowing it even further because now, yes, it's a preference, but it's also, there's probably something psychographic about that, just around folks who prefer to meet in person versus prefer virtual. Now, granted, your niche will probably lean you one direction or another. If you're working with busy professionals, they're probably thrilled to find someone who will work with them remotely. But there may be clients who ultimately turn both of you down because you don't want to meet in person. That's okay.
Yeah.
So
and there's other advisors. There are other advisors in XY that do either like a mix, or they like meeting, in person. Like Ben Wasik is somebody who comes to mind. He's in Minnesota and he has a whole lot of contacts within his church. And he sees them at church and he sees them in person, and he likes being able to meet with people in person. I don't think it's more a preference thing. I honestly, like, since I started doing virtual meetings, I don't want to have to like get all my stuff and go set up my office somewhere else. And like, this is very convenient for me and for pretty much all of my clients. And I
Mhm.
do feel like it's a factor that if somebody really wants to be, I joke as like they want to stare into my eyes personally instead of on the camera, then that's fine. But they, need to be working with somebody else that I can refer them to and not me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you both so much for coming on this webinar and sharing your expertise and experience in having a niche. So, and for all of our attendees, thank you for taking the time to come out. Just a couple of closing items. One is just a reminder, August 3rd, we'll have our next month's webinar will be about everything you need to know about making your first hire as an advisor with a couple of XYPN members as well. Second off, if ultimately this has piqued your interest, if XYPN is of interest, there's a link in the chat if you'd like to talk to one of our sales team members just about what does XYPN do, what do we offer, all of that sort of thing. And then finally, as you're going to leave, if you will, instead of hitting the X button, if you'll hit back to lobby, there will be a short just questionnaire. Just ask a couple of questions, or we ask you a couple of questions just so we can get feedback. So we cater these to what you're looking for. It helps us with our niche to be sure that we're providing good content and that it's of interest. And so anyway, there are a couple of questions there. So if you hit back to lobby, it'll pop up automatically. Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.